Hi, everybody. I am super excited today to be here with Beth Porter. She is the founder and owner of Earth and Ether Healing. And we're going to learn a lot more about what it is she does. She lives and works in Louisville. And for at this point, I'm not the expert. You are, Beth. So I'm just going to let you take it away and just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how did you get started and inspiration, anything you want to share.
Cool. Well, first, thank you so much for having me, Cory. And what a cool thing that you are offering to our community. So I appreciate it. Yeah, I started the modality that I work with is called Emotional Polarity Technique. It's not very well known. And I found it in 2014, I think, after having gone through some pretty big life upgrades and changes. And really looking for some kind of support. I had worked with traditional talk therapy and some other like counseling modalities before, was interested sort of in like life coaching or something for myself. And this just kind of fell into my lap. I had a girl I was mentoring at the job I was working at, and I just watched her over the course of like 6 months really like just come into herself. And I had been struggling to discover, something that I could use to support me in some transitions I was going through, and didn't really feel like what I experienced with talk therapy was like deep enough. I'm kind of someone who just is pretty self-aware and like very analytical and can kind of get stuck in like those stories really easily, and wasn't finding it supportive to share my share what was going on and have it kind of like repeated back to me. I felt like I'd like done that enough. And I was just like, all right, but I want to feel like I have some agency over like making changes and understanding like why these patterns are still here, even though, I had like left a relationship and had a new relationship. And I was like, what is going on? Why are these things still here? So after watching my mentee kind of like just her whole life shift, and really just more the way that she showed up in at work and in the world and in herself, I was really impressed by. And she kept talking about this person she worked with. And finally one day I was like, all right, who is this person and what are they doing? And when she explained it to me back then, I was kind of like, okay, that feels like yoga. You go to yoga, you are invited to move into certain poses and kind of like push your edge, but you're like you're a full participant in how far you go and how maybe not far you go. But it's nothing like yoga. So anyway, I started receiving this myself. Major things in my life changed. I just became more and more connected to just who I really am, and felt like I was able to really, I had I have like a lot of trauma in my history and my background, and was just able to kind of like put some of that to bed and release it and forgive it truly and let it go, so that I could just show up to life, more fully who I'm here to be. I got inspired, I would be in session with my practitioner and I would just be like, I want to do this for other people. Like I would just be like, my mind would be running there. And then I would be like, okay, I need to like come back in. This is my session, and those little hints were dropped, years ago. And finally, I had met my husband, we got married, we moved all over. We've lived in Cincinnati and Boston and Denver and now Louisville. But we had moved and I was still receiving the support long distance, and I still work with my practitioner on sort of like an as needed basis, but just felt this call to really try to share this with other people. And so in 2018, I decided to get certified and began moonlighting. So kind of like working in the evenings. I had a design job during the day. And right before the pandemic hit, I decided to go full time and bring my practice like, here. And then all of that happened. So then I came back online. And really since then, I've worked with, people all over the world. I've had clients in Australia and New Zealand. Actually being online has really offered that ability.
So remote is an option for anybody who's learning about this. That is an option. That's great to know.
Yeah. And actually at this time, I am fully remote. So
interesting.
In the future, probably in the next few years, I will consider coming back in person and getting a space. But what I found in my own practice, but also working with clients, well, when I was first starting, I was just getting referred out to people that didn't live in Colorado. So most of the people I worked with were like in Minnesota or California, Canada. And so I just had a lot of practice working, long distance before the pandemic hit. But yeah, really, I found, this modality, which I'll explain more about, really goes into some super like vulnerable, tender parts of you. And what I found is that being in your home space and being able to meet me on the phone or have the option to turn your camera off, like if there's some kind of like emotional release, which is really common, can help you to just kind of like anchor into your body and just feel really safe to go there. So I found that to be super supportive. Most people that I work with really, really love even just being on the phone with me versus like face to face. But yeah, so that's kind of like the inspiration of how I decided to study it. The actual technique.
Talk a little bit about, I think it's interesting how you do it online.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what I look for as a practitioner is I'm helping you to understand where you have stuck negative emotions in your physical body. So I look at, is your liver holding depression or anger, resentment, or whatever. I work with tools like muscle testing. So I'm not sure if you've heard of that before.
I have heard of it.
So I essentially, when I'm doing this long distance, I'm like proxying for you. So at the beginning of each session, we connect in. I make sure that I'm like tuning into your field, not mine. And make sure that like you're staying there, like actually your consciousness is staying with us. And just, locating, based on what you're coming in with. So say I'm just going to make something up, but say you're coming in with like anxiety. And so then I'm asking your system, okay, is there an emotional component to this anxiety that we can work with? And then once I get the go ahead, I ask, okay, what do we need to shift first to allow more space for you to come online, like your actual authentic self? And that's where I will, be able to locate specifically what emotions you're holding, if they're your emotions, there's somebody else's emotions, if this is a current emotional pattern or if it's a past emotional pattern. And then we look at what is the root of that situation. So usually this takes us back to sometime in childhood, but can go into like, teens, 20s, whatever. And we're uncovering the original memory or root story that's associated to that like firing emotional pattern that's automatic in your system. And what we do is then we support your body to release it. So another tool I work with is magnets. That's where the polarity comes in.
Biomagnetism.
And it's just really working with like your system, that like our natural firing, electromagnetic field. I essentially ask your, say we're moving anger out of your liver. I'm asking your liver, what do you need to be supported to be able to interrupt this automatic pattern, to release it? We use the magnets in conjunction with a breathing technique. And then once we've collected the story and the emotions and released them, we want to offer your brain, your body, your spiritual system the opportunity to kind of like I was saying earlier, put that memory to bed and invite a new experience into your life. And so this whole time we're sort of preparing your nervous system to be available to let that go. And at this stage in the process, we are looking at, is this trauma? Like, was this root memory a traumatic event? Did your body code this as traumatic? So we code something as traumatic, or label something as traumatic in our system when we experience something and it's not the actual event, it's just how we've interpreted it. So if we've interpreted that we're alone in the situation, either actually alone or, figuratively alone, something can be, thought of as traumatic. And then there's two different stages of trauma that we look at if you're in phase 1 or phase 2. So phase 1 trauma is when one side of the brain takes over and the other side drops out. And so there's like this hypervigilance kind of energy, high anxiety situation. Your system is trying to get you out of that event or experience. And then the second phase is when both sides go offline. And so it's like the patterns of like disassociation and numbing, or just like checking out,
shock or something. Okay.
Shock. So it's interesting when you look at, nervous system patterns of like fight or flight, like that's kind of like phase one. And then I relate freezing and fawning to like phase two.
Okay.
And so there's a specific way that we will approach this stage if trauma is present in this experience, to really keep the brain online. We want everybody to be here as we're like moving through this, and then just keeping the nervous system in a state of like calmness and safety and understanding that like that was then, this is now, we can move forward. And so then we work through this process of different statements. Like part of the process is me sort of helping guide you from this place, this old memory, to the new place that we're, wanting to get you to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I know this is, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but it reminds me a little bit of like what EMDR accomplishes a little bit, like just a real refiling or reprioritizing. Is that some people are more familiar now with EMDR, especially after Marshall Fire. There was a lot of that being offered. And so I just thought I would ask if you could relate it. Is that accurate? It kind of tries to do the same
from a concept standpoint.
From a concept,
yes. It's like, let's rewire what you are thinking of, connecting this to understand that you're not still in this trauma event. So you don't, your body doesn't need to react this way. And I would say one of the differentiators would be that we work with the concept of like forgiveness a lot as well. So through this like process of letting go of what has occurred, moving on to the next stage, and more from like less from a religious standpoint, more from just like a forgiveness as an energy. Like it kind of takes like a quantum leap to get us to like into a space of being able to truly forgive something, and forgive ourselves for being in the situation in the first place, or not knowing if you're talking about the fire, like not like thinking ahead of time of like how to like navigate something like this, and all of that kind of stuff, which that piece of it I have found to be just really powerful. Being able to reframe the story.
No, that's very, very interesting. I'm glad that you went into some depth on that. And I guess I would also want to ask, what is your vision for the future of your business? I mean, are you happy to just stay a one-person show, or do you plan to expand, or what? Tell us what you're thinking.
I would say in the near term, continuing to build my one-on-one practice. I've been searching for ways to be able to sort of share this in a larger group setting. But what's so interesting is that it's, it's a very vulnerable process for starters, which on my YouTube, there are people who have like been willing to do live sessions. So you can see how a session is run and kind of see how things kind of go back. But I think for now, building my private practice, continuing to do that. Like I said, I work with people
all over,
mostly not in Colorado. So I would love to be more connected to our community here. And do some in-person events. So I also host women's retreats with one of my best friends and wellness partners, Katie, and we bring this, I bring this work to the retreats as well.
It's not Katie Moore, is it?
No.
I was like, I interviewed Katie Moore and wondered if that was maybe but you have a partner.
She's not in our community either. She's in Arizona now.
Gotcha.
We met in our past career. We both were designers for Target. We both used to design kids' clothes and met back then, and have stayed friends for years and years, and have been on this path together. And so we put together retreats, and our complementary skill sets kind of work together to bring really, I mean, healing is just like a part of life, just like grief and
natural process.
And I really believe that our bodies are always positioning us to heal and evolve and grow and expand, and this process is really just like helping you to really connect to who you really are, so that you can express authentically in this,
Yeah,
in this
no,
life. So
that's
yeah,
wonderful. No, I love learning things on these interviews, and this is really powerful stuff. And after the interview, I'll put up a slide of some testimonials so people can maybe get their headspace wrapped around exactly
yeah,
how it works. We'll do a slide with your website as well. And then you have some special promotions you talked about briefly. Do you
yeah.
want to mention?
Yeah, I would love to. So we do have a retreat coming up next month. I'm not sure when you actually
Well,
are posting
yeah,
this.
I mean, this will go out, let's see, today is right after Mother's Day, middle of
15th.
May,
Yeah.
2023. So we'll put it out, soon. So you're saying in June
Yeah.
2023, you'll have a event?
Yes.
Okay.
So there is a retreat. If you're catching this before then, feel free to shoot me a note
Okay.
and see if we have one spot left that we're
Okay.
looking to fill. And would be happy to offer $200 off the retreat price.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, just feel free to contact for
Okay.
that. And then otherwise, yeah, for anyone that's checking this out here, I'll give you a link to book for 15% off your first session.
That's awesome.
And then I also do, just because this is new and, scary to try new things sometimes. I have a 48-hour window. If this is like something that you've tried and you're like, this really isn't my thing,
Okay.
I offer a full refund.
Okay. Okay. Just,
Like no
yeah.
strings attached. Just yeah, really
Yeah.
encouraging people to try something
Yeah. Yeah.
different.
Try.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
And then I think you've got some social media you can just shout out, and then I'll put up the
yeah,
actual addresses. But what are they? Where do you like to
yeah.
post?
I'm on Instagram more.
Okay.
Instagram, I have a Facebook page, YouTube, and I spend a lot of time in my mailing list, so I can make sure that you get all those
Just
links.
email too. Okay.
Yeah,
Good old fashioned email.
yeah,
Well, this has been amazing, Beth. I so appreciate you sharing your talent and your gifts with our community and a lot of communities. Is there anything else you want to just share before we kind of sign off and anything?
yeah. I think one thing I'll share is, or that just popped in my mind, is
Mhm.
the kinds of things that this supports, because I think it feels so esoteric
Mhm.
explaining it,
Yeah.
that sometimes it can be like, well, what does that actually help with?
Mhm.
What if you're experiencing, anxiety and depression is a really common thing that I see people
Mhm.
for. Grief after losing someone is a
Mhm.
really, really big thing that I see people for.
Yeah.
I've also worked with clients that have had issues with infertility
Okay.
and, more like life coaching stuff as well,
Mhm.
feeling like a
Mhm.
little bit stuck in a job, not understanding
Okay.
like why you can't get past a certain level, or you're stuck at a
Mhm.
certain, pattern for a long time. It's kind of like a wide ranging set of things, but just to give a little taste of like, if you're like, what does that actually help, solve?
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Those
are
are
the kinds of
those
things.
are the kind of the hot topics, right?
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much, Beth. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. And like I've mentioned already, at the end of this, I'll have a slide with some more contact information for you, social media links, and then some testimonials and other imagery that I'll work out, and so people will know how to get a hold of you. And yeah, I'm just really impressed and so happy and honored I got a chance to meet you, and
Thank you.
really, really enjoyed our time. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we'll sign off, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you. Bye.